They say nice guys finish last in divorce, but what if choosing peace is actually the ultimate power move to protect your money? The system is designed to make you fight, but today, the Chief Peacekeeper is here to show you why fighting is the most expensive mistake you'll ever make. Welcome back. Welcome to Divorcing Strong, the podcast that pulls no punches when it comes to divorce. I'm Becky Sampson, better known as Bulldog Becky Brockovich, and I'm here to give you the straight talk, the strategies, and the subpoena secrets you won't hear anywhere else. With expert guests and proven advice, you'll learn your rights, your options, and gain your power that encourages a fair and equitable outcome. Divorce doesn't have to break you. It can build you. Let's get to it. Well, welcome back to another episode of the Divorcing Strong podcast. Of course, I'm your host, Becky Sampson, as always. And this week has been full of amazing episodes. And, we're obviously here to provide you information, to help you navigate through the legal process, because that is just something that we don't learn when we're younger. And we certainly don't think that we're going to get divorced. And when you are facing a divorce, or you have a family or a family member that is going through it, it's just, sometimes you just need answers. So every episode, I'm very intentional about bringing you answers and different resources and people that are out there to help you through that. Also, just want to remind you to download your free 100 divorce legal terms. So this is going to help you educate you on the actual terms that are used with lawyers, mediators, arbitrators, everybody that's involved and touches divorce. You'll be able to be more knowledgeable, to make better choices, to advocate for yourself. So that's what we're all about. And so let me just tell you who's going to be on our show today. On today's episode of Divorcing Strong, I'm joined by Scott Levin. He's widely known as the Chief Peacekeeper, a family law attorney, mediator, and certified divorce financial analyst who has been firsthand He has seen firsthand what happens when divorce becomes a battlefield instead of a turning point. Most people enter divorce thinking that they need to fight to survive it, financially, emotionally, even as a parent. Scott's work challenges that assumption. Through mediation and financial insight, he helps people step out of the fear-driven decisions and into clarity, strategy, and long-term stability. His approach is grounded in a simple but powerful truth. When emotions run high, the legal system doesn't always protect your humanity unless somebody intentionally centers it. Scott focuses on de-escalation, informed choice, and outcomes that families can actually live with after the divorce is final. So welcome to the show, Scott.
Thank you so much, Becky. It's great to be here. I'm excited.
Yeah, well, I love when it takes just a little bit of elbow work to get us together.
Yeah.
But we made it, and I appreciate your time. I know as a lawyer in any kind of capacity, but especially a divorce attorney and mediator, your time is very valuable, and it can be quite stressful. So thanks for taking some time out to be with us.
Yeah. I'm excited to be here, like I said, and hopefully I'll say something that makes sense or resonates with somebody out there. I'll give it to you. I'll shoot straight, whatever you'll ask, and we'll just have a good, fun conversation.
Well, that's what I like, is I like that I get to surround myself with a bunch of people who are professionals in this field. So thank you. So I want to ask kind of a question, and this is always a funny question to ask the attorneys because typically it's not something that you wake up when you're really young and go, yeah, I want to be a divorce attorney. But what's the backstory of what got you to that point? And you and your wife are both in this industry. So kind of talk a little bit about what brought you to that point and why you're so passionate about what you do now.
Yeah, family law, as you may or may not agree, there's an element of shadiness to it. I mean, there's a lot of lawyers out there that have like bait and switch. It's going to be this much, and then all of a sudden you hire someone and it's a whole different shebang. And so a lot of family law litigators are great. A lot are problem perpetuators. They have no desire or intention to eliminate the conflict. And that's pretty much what happened to my family when I was a kid. I had, I was a child of a really kind of a nasty situation. I was shielded a lot, but not all the way. And we didn't really have, money to like be throwing around. So it wasn't necessarily a financial thing. It was just a bitter court fight that between my parents. And I just want to kind of highlight that real quick before we get in. If you're looking out there, family law attorneys are either very passionate about what they do for some reason. In my life, this is kind of like how I work out all of my junk in my head. It's almost like my therapy being in this industry. But family law attorneys are in this industry because they don't have options not to be. And you have to be careful of those folks because, the fees, the intention not to resolve anything. If you get the wrong attorney, like my mom did, it will take you in the exact opposite direction of where you want to go.
Well, you don't know about this about me, Scott, but one of the things I always say, my key phrase, don't marry the first divorce attorney you meet. Is because it's just like any other relationship. And I can't tell you how many times people have come to me and said, Becky, there's multiple reasons why this happens, by the way, but they'll come to me and they're like, I don't like my attorney. They're not doing what I need to do. And it could be a product of how they're interacting with them, or it could be also with that attorney. And like you said, sometimes they're in it for the fight. They're wanting that result of the fight and to keep it going and going and going. But that's not the attorney, obviously, that you advocate for, because you're all about the peace building aspect of it, the peacekeeper, I should say.
Yeah, that's also one of the things I tell people is, look, I'm plenty busy. You don't, if you want to feel comfortable with the mediation attorney you're hiring, you want to have complete buy-in that they're neutral, impartial, and they're going to give you their best efforts. But the last thing you want to do is hire a litigator, someone that's actively litigating cases who mediates on the side.
And if somebody's listening and doesn't know what litigation is, what does that mean?
Basically, attorneys that represent clients in the court process, where they are attorney of record. They are going to court with them. They are filing briefs. They are doing discovery. They are doing all sorts of things that their clients have no understanding or no knowledge about. And all of that's costing money. But those folks, there are a ton of people. When I first started mediating, I switched from litigation to mediation overnight because I was thinking about it a long time. My therapist was like trying to convince me to do it at the time. But I had one final case where I was like, no, I'm officially never going to be attorney of record in the court process again. And I did that, but it's hard to do that because you turn away a lot of money.
Yeah.
And so, but if you hire someone that's going to court and representing clients as your mediator, when they have something come up on their schedule, like an emergency hearing, which only happens 3 out of every 5 days, guess appointment at 2:00 is going to be pushed off their calendar, the mediation. So that's, availability is one of the key, benefits of doing a peaceful outside of court process. So my biggest takeaway is hire someone that's fully committed to mediation if you want to mediate. Don't get in the pool with someone that's doing both simultaneously. That's my personal opinion, and that's unpopular with some of my colleagues. So I will say that.
So here's a question regarding that. So looking at this, like the peace equates power perspective, like how does mediation change the financial outcome of someone's divorce?
Yeah, divorce really, in my opinion, is about 2 things or 3 things. It's about assets, debts, property division. And if you have kids, it's about protecting your kids. And then if you don't have kids, it's about protecting your financial future by planning a smart divorce outcome. But it's a math problem. And that's where, I'm a finance person. That's always been my strength. So when I'm talking with people, and showing them visually like what their assets are, what their debts are. And I'm talking to both sides to a divorce. I'm really trying to empower them to understand for themselves what they have and the ways that they could go about dividing them. Now, my job is to make sure that they don't pay taxes unnecessarily, that they don't get penalized, that there's no unnecessary fees, and that it's an equitable division. But you can be as creative as you want in mediation. Almost every week we do a settlement where one person's staying on the other person's property's mortgage loan. And when I tell my friends that are in the court system that, they're like, that's crazy, you're insane. And I'm like, well, I've been doing it 16 years and I've never had one case call me saying it was a disaster. So as long as it's laid out, you can be very creative, but you just have to have someone that understands what questions to ask you in order to make creative solutions also practical.
So it does make you a little unusual because most attorneys don't have that kind of background or when it comes to financial, but divorce is such a big financial transaction.
Huge. Yeah. And like you said, my wife works with us. So she's a certified co-parenting specialist and a mediator. So we co-mediate, and now everyone ends up liking her way more than me. Oh. So I'm there doing the numbers. We're working it out, and she's, more of the heart. But yeah, I mean, in my opinion, I just, it's not as complicated as the internet and as the court system makes it appear to be. A lot of divorces are, about assigning values to all the assets. And then, there's only 5, 6, 7 ways to divide everything. So let's go through those scenarios and look at what, each party's willing to live with. But the key is to get a sense for the complete scope of assets and debts that's relevant to the case, and then to put values on those things, and to get any questions about assets like, hey, I thought that account had another 60,000. You always mentioned, the Bank of Indianapolis account. Where's that listed? I'm going through the statements. If I'm seeing transfers to a Bank of America account that's not listed, then I'm asking those questions. So we want to make sure that we're dealing with the full pie. But then once we are, then we're assigning values to those things. And then it's just not that complicated, as it may seem. If you're working with someone that understands numbers, but can also communicate numbers in a simple way.
Well, and so what's one of the things that obviously it'd be great if we, and I talk about this sometimes a lot on the podcast, is that that'd be great if we all kind of work together and we're collaborative, but what happens, it does, I mean, this is the reason why we're oftentimes in divorce, there's a different opinion of perspective. So can mediation actually work if one of the spouses is a narcissist or high conflict and not going to be revealing the information? Yeah.
I mean, well, the answer is yes. You just might have to, do some of the work around.
Wrestle them to the ground?
Yeah. I mean, here's the reality. There's two imperfect systems. The last thing that you ever want to do is hire a lawyer that's going to antagonize a narcissist. They hate that, and they will fight to the death. You think that they're like, bad to you. They will hate your attorney no matter how they interact with that narcissist. And they will literally view them as the devil, and they will try to defeat them in every possible way during the case. So imperfect system number one, battle it out in court. Imperfect system number two, come into mediation together. Maybe you come with consulting attorneys or a consulting financial expert that can call out somebody when there's something said that they don't believe is accurate. But mediating with a narcissist that doesn't want the case to be resolved, very, very difficult. Mediating with a narcissist who is willing for the case to be resolved is quite possible.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, is most people don't realize. So do you recommend that if they do have attorneys that they bring them to mediation, or would you prefer to work with people that are, even though they have attorneys, that they come on their own?
Yeah, I'm almost probably 90% of our mediations are just with the parties. So, one of the great, lovely, beautiful things about my practice is that I don't have to deal with attorneys very often, in family law. I still see people at the bar. I haven't litigated in how many years? 2013. So
A while.
I see people at like these bar events, where it takes me back to how much deep down, like that negative feelings I have towards people because, attorneys get into it. They take things personal for their clients. But I mean, that's the beautiful thing about my practice is I really am shielded from having to deal with them. So a lot of my clients have consultants. It's just, I don't know who they are and they're not interacting with me. And about 10% of the time, they will bring them to the mediation, and that's fine as long as everyone knows. But I would much, much prefer that we try the first meeting without, because people will be shocked at how much, we can accomplish, as a team of 3 or 4 with my wife and I and the 2 parties. But when you get, 2 attorneys talking, they take a lot of the air out of the room.
Yes.
And they insist on being separated. So like, I try to keep the attorneys in the same space so that they limit the BS, because they know they can't say something that's totally inaccurate if the other attorney can hear them. But if they're in 2 separate rooms, like we have 2 offices here, like they can say whatever they want. And
then there's a wall between them, right? In that communication.
So, yeah. And, I prefer to have like everyone in one space and we have a bunch of these whiteboards behind us. We're always, jotting down ideas, creative problem solving. What if we did this? What about that? It's about coming up with ideas and trying to achieve as many of your objectives as possible, knowing that you're not going to get everything you want, but can you get the most important things that you need?
Yes. And I love that you brought that up, because it's sometimes people don't realize sometimes even in my case, right? Like, it was important to me, even though I wasn't represented at the time of my first mediation, or actually at my only mediation, I should say. I like that I could come with my own voice, right? I got to be able to say, hey, this works for me, or this doesn't work for me. Mediation, the beautiful thing about mediation is it really keeps you out of the court, but it allows you all these opportunities to discuss all these different options. And especially if you're speaking with the other person and it's a high conflict, you've been dealing with the attorney, let's just get together and actually have a conversation. And let the experts, which I really love, a good mediator can do amazing stuff. There's a miracle that happens in that process.
I really like what you just said. It's really, mediation is such a buzzword these days. It's not mediation. Everybody, you need to know that. And I'm not the greatest mediator in the world, trust me, but it's the mediator. It's their ability. Yeah, sure. If someone comes in with no assets, no joint assets, no kids, anyone can write that down, right? But in a true, complicated, adult dependent care case with one parent who hasn't worked in 28 years, the other who's about to retire, they have, significant assets. These are things that you hire a mediator. You don't hire the mediation process to resolve.
Right.
So you got to buy into the actual person. And, I kind of talk to people about that all the time. But, we had a case last week. I had a case where the wife in this case really wanted to co-own their 2 properties together. Now, this couple was pretty young, and so they were very likely to go on to have new people. They don't have kids, and so she was really pushing, like, "Hey, we'll own this property in this state. We'll own the one that we lived in that state, and 25 years from now, we'll sell it." And she at least got to articulate like her idea, and she got to, I asked him, just sit, don't say anything, just take it in. And then, when you're ready when she's done, if you have something to say, you'll say it. But just getting that out made her feel so much better. Now, they didn't end up doing that. And I have clients that do, own a property and then buy a second property together. It's vast majority of those times they have children, minor kids that they're trying to support, in two, safe, happy homes. And so when people aren't married, it didn't make sense to that case to do that, but she got to say it. She got her ideas out. She never would have gotten 2 seconds of that idea out in a court process.
Oh, no. And that's what people don't realize is that even when you have an attorney, when I finally, in my case, had an attorney, even though he was a great attorney, he would say things in court that I was used to saying myself. And so I felt many times like he'd say something. I'm like, I didn't say that. Like, I trusted him and he was an amazing attorney. But I realized after being self-represented for a long time and then an attorney, I kind of lost my voice there. I couldn't talk to the judge anymore and I couldn't talk to the other attorney. And so everything was being filtered through there. But I do appreciate that you say that mediation does give you a voice. It gives you a validation. It gives you an opportunity, especially if you have a really good mediator that knows. I'm actually a trained mediator. That's one of the things I learned when I was getting my degree in peace building.
I love that. I want to know more about that.
Well, it's not a degree that many colleges have, but I remember, I've done life coaching for 15, 16 years. And so it came pretty natural for me, but you can say one question and it sends them in a totally different direction, or you can say another different question and it brings you all together. And it's like, oh my gosh. So it really is important, the mediator that knows how to navigate the mediation. So I really appreciate you saying that, because that's something that people, they just think, oh, mediation. No.
One ChatGPT in the consults, they'll be like, so if we disagree, what do you actually do to make us not disagree? And I'm always like, that's such an interesting question, because like anyone that answers that, like, with like a version of their own ChatGPT answer, it's like, the issues don't change to divorce. There's
right.
Kids, there's parenting, there's introducing the kids to new partners. Are you going to try to move away? Are you going to, where are they going to go to school? There's the kids issues, there's the assets and debts, and there's support. Of course, it's not quite that simple, but the issues are almost never like totally unique to me at this point. Almost always I've dealt with something very similar that I'm working on in a current case. However, it's the personalities that are different.
Yeah.
And like you said, what do you say to someone when it's time for you to reach them, to get them to stretch, and reach an agreement, and you're asking them to do something they don't necessarily want to do? How do you approach them in a way that they're receptive? And that's kind of like the secret sauce, really.
Yeah. And to really stay open in that process, to keep them both open to possibility. For sure. What would you say to somebody that, I had the question, is when they're in that process and they're not knowing what they need or what they want, how do you take them through the process to help them hone into what's most important to them? Yeah.
Yeah. I think, supporting yourself with a team is a key. And it's, again, like you said, don't marry the first lawyer. You got to build a smart team. So the team is, someone like Becky, of course, to get people in the right mainframe. She knows everything about the process. She's going to be talking to you about what's next. What are you up to? How should we approach this? You can get a consulting attorney that just, whether that person only is going to be available to review the final agreement, or whether you're going to work with them to come up with a settlement proposal, or do various things in between. You can get a financial neutral if you want to. That's all. I always say, if you only have enough money for financial or a lawyer, I'd say go with the financial. But you need to try to use the mediation process, because 3 months in, 85% of our clients have a settlement reached. 3 months into a litigation process, you are just starting out. So do you want to try to see if you can resolve it? And then if it can't be resolved, you'll go you'll have to go to a different process. But once you start the litigation, because the lawyers are triggering that, doing things to antagonize, just because that's kind of what the court system is. They're saying things to antagonize. People are getting fired up. You're getting angry with each other. Your relationship doesn't become better typically during the divorce process. So it's just it's very hard to stop the litigation and exit into mediation. It happens, but it's just really hard to do. So you have to be really careful about and intentional about how you are going to try first to navigate divorce.
Yeah, I remember, and you probably have had this situation, but it was early on before I took my mediation classes and stuff. Well, actually, it was actually right in the middle of when I was mediation, because I remember some of the mistakes that my mediator made. I was like, you're not supposed to do that. But anyway.
I get that all the time for people, yeah.
Yeah, because I understood, I was learning about the process at the time. But I remember thinking to myself, and I'm going to really I'm going to tell on myself for a second. But I remember having a conversation with the mediator, because we had to decide on a mediator that was court ordered and all that stuff. And I remember having a conversation. I'm like, oh yeah, she's on my side. You know what I mean? Like, she's going to help me do this kind of thing. And of course, that's not the right way of doing it, because a mediator is a neutral party. However, we went to the mediation with an open heart to be able to negotiate. And it was just, he wasn't willing to move. And she came back to me, and she took so much time with him, like so much time. And they came back, and I was on the phone with her, and she goes, yeah, this isn't going to go anywhere. And I said, oh, did he look like this and start crying? And she goes, yeah. And I said, yeah, you just got played, sweetie. So, it
happens to the best of us, right? You can't, but anytime someone's like, this mediator's on my team, you have to wonder how they're interacting with the other side they're not, they're probably doing things on both sides. That's why I'm a big fan of having joint communication, joint meetings. Of course, during those meetings, if I feel like I could be more effective going, talking with someone on one-on-one, I can, but a person that I'm working with that is also working with a consulting attorney, if they trust that attorney, if they buy into that attorney more than they buy into me, it's very hard to do my job, because now I'm trying to get them to do something that other person's saying don't do.
Yes.
And now I'm kind of antagonistic to them. And, I always tell people, hire a consultant and don't get into a fight with them. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they might not get back to you, but they might. But you hired them originally. Just starting over with a new attorney, it takes so much effort and takes so much, warm up. I'm just not a fan of that. So, yeah. At the same time, I'm saying, yeah, buy into your consultant, but now I'm battling that consultant. It's a bad dynamic.
Well, so how does somebody really? We talked a little bit about this before the show started, but how, in your opinion, would be the best way for someone to, even in a high conflict situation in mediation, to keep their heart open and not get like, because really that's the whole title of this whole thing is that, like, having that mentality that you feel like you have to fight and to win is really going to cost you a lot of money. So what do you recommend that they do to stay open to the process and stay soft?
Yeah, my wife, Mary, who's, like I said, co-mediates with us, was going to join this call. She would be such a great person to answer this, but I really credit her for a lot of that, our success in that regard with our clients, because she is really, really good about pausing and saying, wow, that was really generous. I think we should all just take a second and understand that's not what the law requires. That's beyond that. And that's an offer that, that's leading with his or her heart. And we have to acknowledge that. And she's always pausing the conversations to bring that up. And now the other person doesn't always want to hear that, right? But it's important that they hear it, because those gestures, we want them to continue. We want more of that to come out from both sides. And she's just a really good at drawing people's best out of them. But what I tell people is like, whenever I'm working on a case with, older people, like, 60s, 70s, 80s, and if they've been divorced before, the thing that literally 100% of them will say is, if I could get that 2.5 years back, the hate in my heart, the stress that it put on me, the impact on my quality of life, they all wish they could get that time back. And if they have kids, over time, a lot of them become friends again later in life when they're visiting with their grandkids and things like that. And they don't even remember why or how they got into that big court battle. And a lot of people just don't, so treating the other side like you want to be treated. Someone has to take the high road. Someone has to stop texting all the horrible things. If someone's texting you, then you have to just put the phone down. Somebody has to be the adult. And if one person is continually indicating, hey, I'm not doing that anymore, we're getting divorced, this is happening, so we don't need to play that game anymore. We're going through this process. We didn't file divorce to be stuck in divorce. We filed to get onto the other side. And so
I think something you just said too is very important. You're not only bankrupting yourself. What?
I'm glad I said something that resonated.
Of course, you said lots of things. No, I so appreciate it. But it's something that just really stood out to me was that we're not just bankrupting us financially. You bankrupt your soul and your spiritual and emotional side of it. And that's what you're saying is that people get on the other side. I had a guest a couple of weeks ago. I've mentioned this a couple of times on the shows. Him and his ex-wife had a great relationship. Nobody thought they were going to get divorced. He ended up being in the 7 figures is what he spent to fight, because the 2 attorneys just went after each other. And afterwards they sat down and go, what in the world did we just do? Like, we didn't,
they were guests on the ride. They probably had not a lot to do with it. Yeah.
And they have a great relationship. He's moving on and he's getting married soon. And right. I just think really, honestly, and you also said something that was really important is that even though both parties are not willing, one person can move the needle. One person to put down the weapons and to put down the anger and the bitterness and all of that can shift everything, even though they may not respond in the way that you want them to respond. But that's how I felt. I tell people all the time, I'm like, your heart is actually, having a soft heart is one of your greatest weapons. And I don't mean that as a weapon, like to hurt the other person, but it is to protect you and to influence them. They'll be like, I love that your wife was like, oh my gosh, that's very generous. Just any tiny little angle to be able to show the humanity of that other person. Because if you can see them as real people, as a real person, not somebody that's just trying to get, I know that was something that I looked at my husband. I was like, I'm sure he's terrified. He thinks I'm probably taking him for everything he's ever worked for. And that was never the case.
Well, maybe if you guys talked with a mediator, he could have found that out in a couple hours, whether you were or weren't going to.
Yeah. And again, that is having the right mediator that's willing to bring you together. Because I think you are exactly right that when you do separate them, you're still in that battlefield, right? You're not seeing the humanity, because for me, I had no conversations. Once with the divorce started, we had 0 contact with each other, which makes it even worse.
Yeah.
So yeah. And it could have.
Just think about if you're married, like, sometimes I'm really good at this one thing, and the rest of my life, I mean, I was an addict. I've been sober 17 years, but like,
good for you.
All the meeting, I'm still right there, always one step away. I got all sorts of stuff going on in my head that's not positive, but I'm good at this one thing, and thankfully I'm able to support my family with it. But texting your own, even if you're not going to divorce, people get into these routines where they're saying things that they don't really mean. And if one person just says, hey, I'm just not going to respond anymore, I'm not going to acknowledge that, I know that you don't mean it, I know that I'm just going to take the high road, then the other person will eventually go, oh, well, they're not doing this anymore. This isn't the game. So maybe I should change my behavior, and they will.
Yeah. And it is more powerful than people think, because it changes nations, and it changes relationships, and especially this process. Like, I love that we titled this that, why winning will bankrupt you. It's just, and I say all the time that I won my case, but it's not because it was a fight. I had to advocate big time, but I won for a fair and equitable division. I left him in a good place as well, even as well as me. But that was a lot of elbow work. I'll tell you.
I mean, I had my second time in the last 10 years. Something happened last week where clients of mine who were in a big litigation, they're in their 60s, and they have a lot of assets. But one party kind of thinks that she kind of created the assets, and, California law doesn't acknowledge that,
Doesn't care
who earned the assets. The other person, if it was during the marriage, that's just kind of life. But they were in a big court battle for like a year, and then they were able to pause it. Like I said, it's hard to pause it. You have to be, have some real emotional intelligence. But they did. They interviewed some mediators. They hired us, and we submitted their settlement agreement about 2 weeks ago. And she texted me a photo. I know text. I'm like, my email is @gmail.com. I know text and email are not the professionalism I wish I had. Yeah. She texted me a photo of both of them in Chicago with their grandbaby that was just born. And she was like, this would not have happened.
No.
If it weren't.
And that probably helps you know that you are making a difference. And that's what keeps you going. And first of all,
because it's not always that, there's challenges in this work, and you need those reminders that, you are helping humanity. Exactly.
And you're bringing the people back together. Peacekeeper is a great thing, because we just think of war, and it doesn't have to be that way. I tell people all the time.
Bloody in war, right?
The what?
Everybody gets bloodied in war.
That's a good point. Yes, it is. And especially with how you handle it. So here's my question for you is what does divorcing strong mean to you?
Divorcing strong. Well, the first thing that came to my mind, because I haven't ever really thought of that, is Boston strong. I don't know why, with the marathon and the bombing. Mm-hmm. What did Boston do? They unified. The city of Boston has never been more unified following, the bombing and the marathon, and the outpouring of love and sadness and shared emotions and repercussions from what happened. But how do you bounce back? How do you react if you are unfortunately, surprised by a divorce and you've been married for many years, and a mediator is not going to be able to relate to a 30-year marriage. We meet you at the end, and we're in your lives for a pretty short period of time. So you're dealing with some real emotional issues that aren't going to get better until you get to the other side of the divorce, in my opinion. You get a resolution, and then you can improve and work on yourself and hopefully live your best life. And it's okay to cry. I tell my kids that all the time. It's okay to feel. My parents tried to make it so that I never felt anything, like anytime I showed emotion, it was like, it's okay. Here, have this cheeseburger, have these M&Ms, and it's okay to feel, and it's okay to be sad. And, but it's also important that you strive to be your very best. We only have so long on this earth, and you never know when your number is going to be called. And the last thing you want to be doing is being in the middle of depositions and other court battles when your number is called. It's just a totally unfortunate way to spend your last years. So getting to the other side in a way that you can live with it. It's not what's right. It's not necessarily what you're owed or what's due to you or what you should get. It's what you can live with. And I know that's not a popular sentiment when people hear that, but that's the reality of divorce.
Yeah, no, I love it. It's why I called it Divorcing Strong, is I want people to know that they can come through that stronger.
What do you think? Do you have I've never thought of that. So like I just talked for 12 minutes about nothing, but do you have a succinct, like, what do you think it is?
Divorcing strong, to me, it really comes down to becoming through that process better, not bitter. And it takes a lot of work, It did for me, at least. My first divorce, we didn't even see lawyers. We didn't even see a mediator. We didn't see the judge, nothing. And I'm not saying it was easy. It was a very difficult time in my life. But the second one really taught me, and it was actually a gift for me to be getting my degree in peace building and mediation and conflict resolution, because every day I was reminded, even though I wanted to go to war, right? Like I'm like, how dare you say that to me? And how dare your attorney say this? And every time I went to class, I was reminded that is devaluating me, and that's only causing more problems in the system. So I'd have to go, okay, how am I going to reword that? How am I going to react to that attorney? How am I going to? And one day, I'll tell you a quick story, but I was walking down Honolulu. I was about to give something to his attorney, and I was listening to a book on peace building, and I'm like, do you have a heart of war, or do you have a heart of peace? And I thought, oh man, I hate this attorney. You know, I mean, it's like, and I went and got a little box of chocolates at one of the ABC stores or whatever. And I left it with the package that I left for the attorney. And I will say to you that just that little act of service towards him changed everything. Like, he wrote me an email right after. He said, was that you? Did you leave those?
That's great. You can't fight with your attorney. The second you start fighting with your attorney, they turn off. They know where it's going, and it's just a matter of time until you fire them or they fire you. You can't do it unless you're ready to fire them. But like fighting, giving them criticizing them, they take things personally. They're successful, but a lot of them are, fragile on the inside.
And that's what I said at the very beginning of the show is that, your attorney not working may be you, not them. So it may not be that they may be a great attorney, but if you're fighting your attorney, the attorney stops working for you. So I always tell people, I mean, even with his attorney, I'd always, thank you so much. I know you're making the greatest effort you can to get us through the system, things like that. So language is everything when it comes to peace building.
And I totally in a second, Becky, but what do you say to people that say, let's say there was a cheating that's ending the marriage, and they focus on that one act and they say it's all her fault, it's all his fault. Do you get real with them and say, well, it takes two to tango?
Yeah, it's always, I just actually spoke at an abuse a couple of days ago. They asked me to come in and talk about abuse. And I said, no matter what, there's always two sides. Whether you have characteristics that the abuser is looking for and you didn't know that you were vulnerable to it, or because I was abusive to my first husband, and I'm very open about that, about how I was. And then the second one was not the case. I was probably overly kind. I think that caused some of the problem. But yeah, everybody has a part in a relationship. And so as quickly as you can do is remove yourself away from what they've done. Allows you to heal, take responsibility. And you and I know we're speaking the same language because I've been doing 12-step work for 16 years. So
I tell people, like my addict, I'm like, when I go to Al-Anon meetings, I go to Narcotics Anonymous all the time. And people are like, but, my wife's not forgiving me, or my husband, and I'm like, well, yeah, they don't have to forgive you. You have to earn it. You got to earn it every single day. They don't trust that you're going to be on this path.
Yeah.
But if you earn it, there's nothing that will give you more satisfaction in the rest of your life than earning back that trust.
And once you take your power back like that and take ownership of what your part is in it, it is so much easier to move on. It's just, It is what it is.
Oh, I love this conversation.
Acceptance, right? Acceptance is the key to all of our problems.
Yeah.
So yeah. Well, thank you so much, Scott.
So much. Thanks for having me. I loved it.
It's great. Well, it's a lot of fun. I enjoyed it, and I enjoy meeting people from all over. Let me just ask you one more question. Do you guys just do mediations for California, or do you nationwide?
Yeah, no, I'm in California, so I do represent people in prenuptial and postnuptial agreements. I represent people as a consulting attorney myself. So if you're using another mediator and you want advice, I serve in that role. I don't ever go to court. But yeah, all throughout California, mediation keeps us busy enough. I have 3 boys, 16, 12, and 7. So we're running around like crazy, and it's one of the things that makes us real. Like we can relate to the pickups, the drop-offs, the stress, the middle school homework that like literally I can't do 6th grade homework. It's impossible. That's how I feel. So
that's why you have a beautiful wife that helps you.
Yeah. Well, I really enjoyed the conversation. Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. So hold on just one second. Hold
Sure.
on. Oh, what a great conversation. I love it. And I also love when people are in recovery, because you can tell the people who have done some work in recovery, because we know we have a different perspective, right? And really every single one of us in this world are doing the best that we know how at this time, and being patient with that process. And we're all on our own journey. So I love it. That's my life coaching for the day. So thanks again for tuning in for another episode of the Divorcing Strong podcast. I've been Becky Sampson, your host, or hostess, as my mom likes to say, and with Scott Levin. So thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next week. Thanks for listening to the Divorcing Strong podcast. This episode is sponsored by Only Subpoenas, where we make subpoenas simple, powerful, and 100% compliant. If you're having a hard time getting the information you need to settle for a fair and equitable divorce, let us help you. Whether you're an attorney or you're navigating divorce on your own, subpoenas can uncover the truth, secure the evidence you need, and level the playing field. To see how we can help, book an appointment by visiting our website at onlysubpoenas.com.